Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Rosalio Turbiartes here with a new video for you. In this video, we'll dive into the story of Lord Frieza from the Dragon Ball Z Dragon Ball Super anime. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying, just sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So let's get started. Although the Dragon Ball universe is filled with what seems like a countless number of villains, there is one that easily rises above the rest. He is the perfect combination of powerful, of ruthless, that is the cause of deaths of countless races across the universe. So everyone, please bow as we get ready to dive into none other than the Galactic Lord Frieza! Before we dive in though, I have to note something. Due to how prominent of a character Frieza is in Dragon Ball, there's a lot of ground to cover with him. So we will be breaking this deep dive into two parts, with this first part giving you a background of Frieza's involvement in the Dragon Ball series, and our next video, which will cover Frieza's abilities and transformations. Like his father, Frieza was born as a mutant of a forgotten race, making him the second of his kind. Thanks to his mutation, Frieza could grow increasingly more powerful without training. Eventually, Frieza even surpassed the might and cruelty of his father, King Cold, and as a result, the king handed control of his empire to Frieza. Using his newly acquired power over the universe, Frieza makes a move against planet Vegeta, home of the Saiyan race, and annexes them into Frieza's empire. He forces them into slavery as part of his Frieza Force, responsible for claiming and destroying planets that rival Frieza's empire or ones that he doesn't like. At his peak, Frieza had annexed 448 planets and had 70% of the universe under his control. He even had the Galactic Patrol at bay, leaving Frieza practically invincible. Eventually, Frieza had enough of the Saiyans' insubordination and concluded that their usefulness to him had run out. So instead of bearing with them any longer, he just elected to destroy planet Vegeta, wiping out the Saiyan race except for a handful of survivors on other planets at the time of the attack. However, another survivor was Prince Vegeta, who surrendered to Frieza's moments before the invasion and kept him as a trophy. Then 25 years later, he became Frieza's ultimate conquering machine, although not willingly. Vegeta frequently disobeyed Frieza, but the power of the one Saiyan rising against him was no match for Frieza. However, during one of those acts of disobedience, when Vegeta travels to Earth with Nappa, Frieza learns of the existence of the Dragon Balls and their ability to grant them mostly any wish, including immortality. Although the Earth is outside his empire, he knows that another planet in his empire, Namek, has a set of its own Dragon Balls that are even more powerful than the ones on Earth. When Frieza arrives on Namek, his search is ruthless as he travels from village to village, slaughtering everyone who stands in his way of obtaining each of the Dragon Balls. However, there is one thorn in his side, and that is Vegeta, with similar goals to achieve immortality, also has arrived on Namek in search of the Dragon Balls. Despite this threat, Frieza is mostly unfazed, citing that these Saiyans are no more than just apes that pose no threats to his plans of everlasting life. Frieza tries to have Vegeta executed, and for a while, Frieza believes he succeeded until mysteriously one of the Dragon Balls goes missing, and Frieza's scouters turn up broken. With the one Dragon Ball missing, Frieza wouldn't be able to make his wish even if he had the other 6. On top of that, without their scouters, Frieza and his men will be less able to detect Vegeta's presence, leaving them more vulnerable to a surprise attack by the Saiyan. Now a little concerned, but still composed, Frieza calls out to Planet Frieza to call out his elite soldiers. The Ginyu Force come to Planet Namek and deliver more scouters along with backup. This is not just for Vegeta though. Frieza also had a premonition about another Saiyan coming to oppose him. He's not far off. As a matter of fact, as a few light years away from Planet Namek, at that moment, was Goku coming right for him and Vegeta. Despite this preparation, Vegeta unleashes a blinding sneak attack on Frieza and his men, while hastily blasting their collective Dragon Balls out the window and more importantly, out of Frieza's grasp. This disadvantage is short-lived, however, as the Ginyu Force arrived on Namek soon after, While the other members of the Ginyu Force fought Vegeta and the other members of the Z Fighters, Captain Ginyu was able to hand-deliver Frieza's lost Dragon Balls, including the remaining ones that Vegeta had discovered himself. With all 7 Dragon Balls in hand, Frieza tries to wish for his immortality to no avail. You see, there is a trick to using the set of Dragon Balls, a password. On Earth, you need to say, "Rise, Shenron," in an Earth language, with all the Dragon Balls present to get him to appear. On Namek, however, the rules still apply, except instead, you have to say it in the Namekian native tongue, which I'm not even going to try and say. But just take my word for it when I say Frieza had no idea what to say to get the dragon to appear. Only a Namekian would. So the next logical thing is to search for any Namekians remaining on Namek, to which there are only 3. Frieza elects to take them on by himself and instructs Captain Ginyu to stay by the ship. When Frieza arrives at the Namekian location, he finds it to be home of the Grand Elder and his bodyguard Nail. Just quickly interrupting today's video to let you all know that our merch store has received an update. Finally, at last, we have released our 70k merch. If you're interested in picking up some high quality merch, the link will be on top of the description. I recommend you hurrying, though some items are limited and will only be available for a limited time. These items are also signed by James Seifer, and if you use the code WTC70k, you will receive 10% of any merch purchase until August 31st, so hurry while you can. Link in the description below. And thank you all for 70k subscribers. Now let's get back into the video. Nail is supposed to be the strongest Namekian the planet has to offer. And when he lunges at Frieza, not only does Frieza not flinch, but he responds to ripping Nail's arm clean off. Nail dies before he gives Frieza the password. But it doesn't matter anyway. When all of this was happening, Krillin and Gohan, allies of Goku and Vegeta, stole back Frieza's Dragon Balls and were able to eliminate all members of the Ginyu Force. On top of that, Frieza finds out that the Namekian Dragon Balls are useless with the passing of the planet's Elder. All of these facts put together infuriate Frieza beyond anything we have ever seen before. This pushes Frieza to the final battle with the Z Warriors. That is more gruesome than anything he has ever attempted. Before he reaches the peak of his power, Frieza is able to cripple Gohan and Piccolo and kill both Krillin and Vegeta. This leaves Goku to take Frieza alone, with both constantly scaling their powers with each new form they take. We will explore all of Frieza's forms in our next video, but just take my word for it that he goes through a lot in this fight. Eventually though, the two powers become so great that they start to destroy the planet they are fighting on. Before they do, Goku offers Frieza the last chance to concede before he ends his life. Frieza initially accepts Goku's offer, but then attempts to stab him in the back, resulting in him being cut in half. Briefly, he lives as an android known as Robo Frieza. But before we can get to know how powerful he is promptly cut down once and for all by Trunks at the beginning of the Android Saga. While this will be the end of the story for most villains, Frieza gets a second chance at life in Dragon Ball Super, where he was revived after having spent years in hell being tormented by his worst nightmare, fluffy singing animals. Lucky for him, some of his men were still loyal to him in the land of the living, where they were able to revive him by stealing the Dragon Balls that Bulma had collected. With his newfound life, he instantly begins to enact his plans to get revenge on the Saiyans who killed him. So, over the span of 4 months, he did something that he thought he would never have to do. He trained. With this training, Frieza was able to perfect a fighting technique that highlights torturing the victim while not killing them, leaving them to writhe in pain before dying. And to deliver the final blow, Frieza can now unlock the new and even more powerful form that he had before, Golden Frieza. With all these tools in hand, Frieza then flies to Earth with his men and prepares to take on the Saiyans. He doesn't plan on letting his army fight the Saiyans, though instead, he arranges for them to make just enough noise to warrant the Saiyans' presence. Sure enough, Goku and Vegeta arrive, and from there, Frieza wastes no time releasing his new golden form. Despite Goku and Vegeta's famous protagonist privilege, they eventually find themselves losing the fight. Not because either of them perished, quite the opposite. Actually, when Frieza realizes that he can't beat Goku and Vegeta, he decides his best way to get revenge is by obliterating the Earth itself. This would have been the end of everything for the Saiyans if it had not been for their connection to the gods. More specifically, Whis. Whis is not only able to protect the Saiyans and their loved ones from obliteration, but he can also rewind time long enough for Goku and Vegeta to intervene and stop Frieza from destroying the Earth, and once again killing him and sending him back to Hell. But this time, his stay would not be nearly as long as the Earth actually needed him. You see, the Omni King, Lord Zeno, will actually be hosting a tournament for all the universes to be part of in the near future, with all the losers being erased from reality. So Goku sees it as the only reasonable option to conclude the best fighter he has ever known in the Tournament of Power. There is one problem though. Frieza already have been revived once with the Earth Dragon Balls, and therefore he cannot be revived again. But Goku found a solution. Fortune teller Baba, an old friend of Goku, can offer a 24-hour life pass to Earth that will allow him to compete in the tournament. When Goku offers this to Frieza, he immediately starts to bargain. Frieza knows his worth in this deal, and because of that, he negotiates for his full revival if they win the tournament. You see, while the Earth's Dragon Balls wouldn't be able to revive Frieza, Whis and Beerus would be able to if he helped them. Having no other option, Goku hesitantly agrees. But luckily for Goku, it pays off because it's actually Frieza along with Android 17 that win the Tournament of Power. And despite all the things Frieza has done to him and his master, Whis follows through and revives Frieza. Although the merriment is not long-lived, as shortly after the tournament ends, Frieza resumes his quest to conquer the universe. One day, while he was on the hunt for the Dragon Balls so that he may make himself 5 centimeters taller, there is no more context to that. That's his whole quest as the returning evil emperor of the universe. It's height. He discovers the existence of a Saiyan, off-world at the time of Frieza's attack, that is still loyal to him. Broly has grown completely isolated from the horrors of Frieza's empire and his father, who is completely devoted to him. During that time, Broly has trained in the inhabitable planet that they lived on, as he has become even stronger than both Goku and Vegeta combined. So Frieza decides to weaponize Broly and put his strength to the test. Frieza commands Broly to simply incapacitate Goku and Vegeta so that he may finish them off. But after, Broly goes berserk and almost destroys the Earth. During that time, Frieza slips away, vowing one day to finish off those Saiyan apes. And that concludes all the background you need to know on Lord Frieza. As I said in the beginning of this video, there will be a part 2 on this video soon where we discuss all of Frieza's forms and abilities, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in all of this information. Thus far, I really hope you enjoyed it. Now there are a few things I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, we the Celestials have got you covered. Our We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of the namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I'd like to extend you an invitation to join our team. The only caveat being that we only accept members from 16 and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking forward for new members to join us. Well, that's it from us from today's video, so thank you for watching and have a great day!
Hey, what is up mortals? It is Trina here with a new video for you. In this video, we'll dive into the abilities and transformations of Lord Frieza from the Dragon Ball Super anime. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying, just sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, let's get started. Welcome back everyone. In our last Frieza video, we discussed Frieza's upbringing and how he got to where he is today. Today we are going to focus on Frieza's combat abilities and forms. So if you would like a refresher on the Universal Emperor himself, make sure to check out our other Frieza video here on this channel. So without further ado, let's begin. First, looking at Frieza's techniques, he seems to have a common theme with naming. Can you guess what it is? Let's see. We had the Death Beam, the Death Ball, the Death Cannon, and who could forget the Death Saucer? I'm sure I don't have to point out that an intergalactic emperor determined to conquer the entire universe and trample over anyone who stands in his way is obsessed with death. However, despite their similar names, each of these moves does something different, and they were developed in different ways. Firstly, the Death Beam is Frieza's signature and most frequently utilized technique. When used, it can create a massive explosion that could level an entire city, or if concentrated into a single shot, it can pierce a person's body completely. To do this, Frieza extends his arm and rapidly fires a thin, very laser of key energy from his pointer finger. The user can fire the attack quickly and in rapid succession while still being accurate. The technique has an even faster but weaker variant and a larger, more powerful variant that utilizes the move's rapid fire ability. Frieza later improved the move even further by perfecting his key control. With this, Frieza can now fire multiple beams from each finger at once instead of just one beam from his pointer finger. He can also now guide them to strike multiple targets like homing missiles. Up next, we have the Death Cannon. The Death Cannon is an energy wave attack that Frieza frequently relies on. This move causes him to channel the energy wave to its absolute maximum. The move also has a unique quirk in which its effectiveness will vary based on Frieza's form. While this may seem evident at first, this is a big deal. This is because with each form Frieza uses, the movement of the wave as it approaches the target changes. Next time you watch the Dragon Ball series, pay close attention to how it changes from form to form. It's pretty neat to see the attention to detail. There is also a version of the move that will use up most of Frieza's energy, but, as a result, completely obliterate his enemy. However, despite the consequences of being defenselessness on the battlefield, Frieza often avoids using this move. Next, we have Frieza's Death Saucers. Well, I say Frieza's, but they actually came from Krillin's Destructo discs that are even more destructive. Regardless, Frieza's Death Saucers are arguably superior to Krillin's Destructo disc. Not in power, mind you. In that sense, they're on the same playing field. But what Frieza has that Krillin doesn't is speed and control. Not only are Frieza's Death Saucers faster than the Destructo disc, but Frieza can also control the direction of his saucers with his mind, while Krillin just kind of has to aim in a general direction and hope for the best. Also, as a closing note for the Death Saucer, good for Krillin because despite being quote-unquote not worth Frieza's time, he still got his move stolen by him, which I mean has to be worth something. And let's look at the last move with death in its name, the Death Ball. Now, despite the word death most likely losing meaning for Frieza based on how many things he has named after it, this move lives up with its name. Frieza will usually use this move as an ultimate attack and traditionally save it as a last resort in battle, or alternatively if he wants to destroy a planet in a hurry. The way this technique works is Frieza will charge a ball of energy on the tip of his finger and then throw it at the target. It sounds simple enough, but Frieza has been known to be vulnerable while he is charging up, which can provide a window of opportunity for his opponents. After Frieza's revival, however, he reveals he was able to develop a much more powerful version of the attack where instead of using just one finger, he charges the move with his whole hand. Now, I know I joked and said that many of Frieza's techniques had death somewhere in the name, but there are some that don't. They're just not as cool because of that. First, we have Frieza's Psychokinesis, a broad term used to describe Frieza's many psychic abilities. The main one is telekinesis, where he uses nearby objects to attack people with his mind. Also, with these psychic powers, Frieza can wield the Imprisonment Ball, a ball of golden energy that contains its victim inside of it. If it comes into contact with anything other than Frieza himself, it will instantly detonate, killing any possible victim it holds inside of it, and of course, Frieza makes sure to weaponize by kicking the ball into whatever object is the closest as swiftly as possible. Then finally, there is the Nova Strike, a rather unremarkable move that allows Frieza to wrap himself in a shield of energy and fires himself at an opponent as a projectile. As silly as it sounds, the move has proven to be quite effective. During the Tournament of Power, when the fate of the universe was on the line, Frieza used this move against someone who could have easily wiped their entire universe's team out of the tournament, and it was actually able to eliminate him. So who knows, maybe Frieza's onto something here. This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN allows you to change your IP address, making it harder to track and securing your privacy. In addition to providing safe passage through the web, You can also expand the reach of your favorite streaming services like Disney+. If you are from the United States, you won't be able to watch any of the MCU and Sony Spider-Man movies, but by switching your location to Japan, you can access them whenever you want. Check out the link in the description to get 3 extra months when you purchase the 12-month subscription plan that costs $99.99 a year. This deal is for a limited time, and thanks to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video. In the second part of this video, we'll examine Frieza's various forms and transformations at his disposal. Frieza's first form, simply titled First Form, is when Frieza is at his weakest, sporting what would most call a baby face. Well, I say this, but he can still destroy an entire planet in this form if he so chooses. In this form, Frieza has a large chestnut-shaped skull with 2 horns that extend out at an angle. He also has a relatively thick tail with a pointy end, and instead of feet, he has 3 toe-like appendages that he walks on. When Frieza was younger, his first form looked different than it does today, with it being much pinker in hue, and it lacked the lines on his arms and legs as well as his signature shoulder pads. Moving on to his second form, titled Second Form, I'm starting to notice another pattern. In this second form, Frieza appears much more mature than his first form. With this form, Frieza can get the height he always dreamed of, even being able to tower over the Z Fighter's jolly green giant, Piccolo. In this form, Frieza's muscle mass grows, allowing him to sport a bulkier and more defined build. He becomes so muscular that his armor can no longer contain his mass and shatters. His face also becomes less baby-shaped, including a more angled jawline and sharper nose. In addition, his horns grow longer and more curvy, which causes him to look very similar to his father, King Cold. The last noticeable difference is the deepening of Frieza's voice compared to his first form. Next, we have Frieza's third form, which he calls his third form. Oh, we're doing this again, aren't we? Regardless, Frieza's third form goes beyond a growth spurt and a matured face. In this form, Frieza becomes much more ferocious and imposing in stature, with a highly elongated skull. His face also becomes distorted, with his nose melding into his mouth to form something similar to a beak. The horns on his head reposition themselves towards the longer part of Frieza's head and become white. In addition, 2 pairs of curved spikes grow out of his back, and the armor on his shoulders extends outwards. He stands with a slight hunch and holds himself in a little bit of a feral manner. Before Goku, no one had ever seen Frieza in this form. The show doesn't say how much power Frieza gains in this form, but when fighting the Z Fighters, he struggled to fight Piccolo and Nail when fused, but now, in his third form, he can throw them around like rag dolls. In the dub of Dragon Ball Z, Frieza's voice gains an echo, with both his first and second forms talking over each other. Although if you look in Dragon Ball Z Kai, the effect was removed, just opting to give Frieza the voice of his second form. Next, we examine Frieza's fourth form, which he calls not the fourth form, but its final form. This was the form that Frieza was born in, thus, technically, this is his real first form, but that's too complicated for me to follow, so we're just going to call it Super Frieza. This form differs drastically from his previous ones. Instead of becoming more advanced and mutated as it did previously, Frieza's body regresses, with his third form breaking apart like a shell. From this, he gains a slender and marginal taller body, with his limbs becoming much more lengthy. With this, Frieza's voice also returns to its higher pitch. His appearance can now be described as a small white lizard. His horns and spikes disappear, and his physique becomes much more toned than bulky. In addition, the purple blotches on the sides of his face disappear. By using 1% of this form's true power, he can dwarf the power of his previous form. Initially, Frieza has difficulty controlling his true power and puts his body through almost unbearable strain. Because of this, Frieza usually avoids using this form, and even when he does use it, he will only rely on a small fraction of his true power. However, this was only during Frieza's first debut. Since then, Frieza has been able to master his ki, and his final form has become his default form, just in case it wasn't confusing enough. But don't worry, this next form is nice and straightforward, seeing that it only existed for a few minutes. Mega Frieza exists as a result of Frieza being rebuilt as a cyborg after scientists reconstructed what remained of Frieza after his body was obliterated after being caught in Planet Nameki's explosion. The whole lower half of his body, entire left arm, and right side of his face were replaced with electronic parts, given that they were destroyed beyond organic repair. These enhancements allowed Frieza to exceed the limits imposed by his original body. However, by how much we'll never know, as right after being brought back to life, he is swiftly executed by future Trunks. We finally come to the form I'm sure you all have been waiting for, Golden Frieza. While plotting his revenge against Goku, Frieza obtained this ultimate evolution, Golden Frieza. Frieza implied that he purposely developed the form for him to take on its golden appearance. While similar in shape to his base form, his skin turns from a white to a more regal purple along with pronounced eye ridges. The most important part of this form, though, is his gold bio armor that covers almost all of his body. He also achieves his lifelong goal of being able to grow taller, and along with it, he gains a significant increase in muscle mass. Another notable difference is that his usual purple ki energy turned into a fiery yellow. Unlike his first three forms, Golden Frieza actually pushes Frieza's power beyond the power of his final form. The increase is so great that even Vegeta was afraid to fight him initially. However, despite the immense increase of power, Golden Frieza has only one crippling flaw. After only a few minutes of usage, Frieza burns through most of his energy, and if it goes on long enough, he will lose the form entirely. Luckily though, Frieza also can hold back his power, allowing him to stay in that form for a little while longer. Following his second death, Frieza spent his time in Hell, continuing his training simply by focusing solely on his goal of killing Goku. This allowed Frieza to master the Golden Frieza transformation and become much stronger. By the end of the anime, he could keep the form up for almost a whole hour. On paper, an hour doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it was enough time to save the universe during the Tournament of Power, being Frieza's only form to save worlds instead of just destroying them. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has got you covered. Our We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I'd like to extend you an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being that we only accept members from 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. And if you want more content from me, check out all my social medias at Trina Duhart on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and more. Well, that's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have a great day. Bye!